Hello, welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections in mind. Well, another year has come and gone, as surprising as that may seem to a lot of us. Where has the time gone? It is that time of year once again to take a look back at the year that was and do a best and worst list of the movies and TV that we've seen this year, and also be doing a preview of what you would expect from this channel in 2026. Now, just an explanation before we get started. A lot of the channels like to do the, top 10 best, top 10 worst, and I like to add a third category to that. And there's really just a sliding scale of, there's a lot of the best, there's some of the worst, and a good chunk of what you see is on the sliding scale of the just okay. You'll come out of a movie or you finish a TV show and people ask, well, what do you think? It's like, well, it's fine. And that can cover a lot of ground. So what do we mean by that? Here, I'm going to do a going up the sliding scale from worst through the big chunk of just okay to the best of 2025. Now, as a lot of people say, this is not a comprehensive list. There's a lot of things that I haven't seen this year, and they would probably change my list dramatically, or maybe not, depending on if I'd seen them. This is just a list of what I've saw this year. And I'll also be including some things on this list that I saw, but I just didn't feel like I had enough material there to do a full review of. So for those, I'm going to be doing a bit more of a mini review of, and for the ones that have already done reviews, you can find all those full reviews on my channel. I'll be doing a brief thoughts on the ones that I've done full reviews of. So first things first, let's get the bad taste out of our mouths right away. Let's start with the worst of the worst of this year. And for me, we have to start this list with Star Trek Section 31. This was just, not a good movie. Not a good Star Trek movie. Just overall a disappointment. A prime example of what you don't want to see from a straight to streaming series trying to be retooled into a streaming movie. It just did not work. Next we have the Minecraft movie, which I had, full disclosure, never seen, never done any of the Minecrafting, played any of the games, don't know any of the lore. And so I went to this movie completely blind from that aspect, and I did not know that this had become like a meme thing when I went to this. So as a theater experience, it was horrendous, and as a movie, it was boring at best and annoying at worst. So that was my take on that. And also in the worst category would be Wolfman. Now, I enjoyed, Lionel's Invisible Man. This one, not as well made as far as I could tell. Just not enough meat on the bone with this one. So overall, I would say those would be the worst of the worst. Now we get into the sliding scale of it's okay. And, near the bottom, these are ones where, yes, they're not great, but I can't exactly call them the worst either. The worst crime in these ones could just be that they were just boring. And, starting off the bottom of the just okay sliding scale would have to be Tron Ares. This is one where I was late to see it and because of travel, and by the time I got to see it and the movie theater was over, I kind of kept procrastinating on whether or not to do a full review of this. And by the time I got to it, it's like, this is just kind of a nothing movie, and this could have been a cool premise, but they just didn't do anything with it. And the acting, overall was just kind of in one ear and out the other. And the spectacle was only went so far. The soundtrack, I'm not a huge fan of this Tron soundtrack per se, so that didn't really grab me. So that's, overall, I can't really say it's a terrible movie, but it is kind of a nothing burger as far as I'm concerned. And speaking of nothing burgers, I would also have to add on Happy Gilmore 2, where you've got these legacy comedy sequels, and while this isn't the worst legacy comedy sequel out there, this was just more Happy Gilmore, but it just watching this, there's so many references back to the original movie, and it's like, oh, wasn't the original movie great? Wasn't it just fun and fantastic? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna just go watch that again. Why am I sitting through this? It's like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt at the at the end of that one. Next up would have to be Mickey 17. I went to this, trailers made it seem interesting enough, and I never read the book, so go to see it. It's decent visuals. The acting is fine, but I just found it really annoying. And social commentary aside, it's like I don't, we need social commentary that doesn't hit people over the head with it. We've been getting hit over the head with this for a decade now. It's like enough already, Next up is Nobody 2. Nobody 2, I only recently saw the original Nobody, which I thought was fine. I mean, I much prefer John Wick over the original Nobody, but I can appreciate its charm. And then Nobody 2 is just like, it's more of it. And the first one was fine. This one, it felt a little bit of a step down, in my opinion. So, that's just my opinion. It's not the worst, it's just kind of there. Also just kind of there is Sisu Road to Revenge. Again, didn't see the original Sisu in theaters. I saw it later, and I was, for what it was, it's like, all right, there's some decent entertainment value for this, for the right sort of crowd. This, it's like, yeah, again, more of the same, but I feel like, it probably, the first one probably did a little bit better. And, by the time the movie's over, it's like, wait, that was it? It's like cool action scenes. Maybe just see them on YouTube. But, as a movie, it's like that, I left feeling kind of nothing after that. Maybe just because I was drained. I don't know. Next up, again, another one that I saw, and I wanted to do a review on this, but I just felt like I didn't have enough material to talk about or a good opinion to share on this. This was Ironheart, the Disney Plus series following Riri Williams. This is one where it's like, it's fine, but with these Disney Plus series, I was just kind of drained with the MCU. It's like, this doesn't really feel like it connects to anything important. You finally bring in Mephisto, I guess, but that's like, well, we've been teased on that for so long, and now it's like, when it could have been cool, that would have been cool 5 years ago, and now it's just kind of, eh. So, again, that's just kind of how I felt after finishing that series. Next up is Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the third Now You See Me movie. Again, I was not a humongous fan of the first two Now You See Me's, but the first one was okay. The second one, Diminishing Returns. This one, it's proud on par with the second one. Again, Diminishing Returns overall. Next up is Anaconda, the Jack Black, Paul Rudd remake, a spiritual sequel to the original Anaconda. Again, I hadn't seen the original Anaconda until the day before I went to see this one. I just saw it because I thought the trailers looked funny enough, and I'm sorry to say, at least from my perspective, what I was afraid was going to happen happened. About 80-85% of the funny bits in the movie were in the trailer. So, that's always the risk you take with these sorts of comedies. Unlike another comedy that I'll discuss higher up this list. Next up is Daredevil Born Again. Great to see, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio back as, Daredevil and Kingpin, but I don't know, to me, this felt like a departure from what made the Netflix series great, or rather, this felt like it was trying too hard to emulate what the Netflix series was without actually having the edge to do that, and then still trying to be a Disney thing, and it was interesting, and I'm curious to see what they do going forward, but this was just not. This felt like this was disappointing to me overall as a season. Some good moments, but overall kind of disappointing. Just above that, I would put Marvel Zombies. I was going to do a review on this, but for 4 episodes, there wasn't much here. Now the animation style is fine, but again, we're down to the point where we're focusing on characters that, we're focusing on the leftovers, basically. We're kind of focusing on, that's why, the MCU is bringing back all the old cast members now, because the leftovers aren't satisfying anymore. They were fun for a brief moment, but they're not satisfying anymore, and that's kind of what Marvel Zombie was. It was fine, but ultimately empty carbs at that point. And again, slightly above that, I would put Captain America Brave New World. I think I would have liked this movie a lot more if the marketing had not completely ruined all the thrills surrounding Red Hulk and all of that. Just, nothing left besides that. No thrill discovery at that. Just overall kind of a missed opportunity, I think, on that, and a unfortunate way for Sam Wilson to get his first solo Captain America movie. Next up, I would put Jurassic World Rebirth. This was just interesting enough to keep me engaged, but dinosaur wise, I'm a sucker for dinosaurs. I know a lot of people are, so for better or worse, I'll keep showing up to these, but this was not one of the greatest Jurassic movies out there, because what else can we say with these dinosaurs at this point? They need to stop making these for a while. I think make people miss dinosaurs again. So there's that. The next one up, I would say, is The Running Man, which, again, trailers looked interesting, and I wanted to give it a shot. But ultimately, it's like, I think the editing, the pacing, and the runtime kind of killed this one for me. Like, it was interesting experience, but overall, I would much rather watch the original Running Man over this new one. So there's that. A better dinosaur movie that came out this year, although not by much, it's only a couple spots up from Jurassic World Rebirth, is Primitive War. This one I just saw a couple days ago, and what more do you need from the presents other than dinosaurs hunting Vietnam soldiers? That's it. It's like there's fun to be had with that. I wish that they just could have gone completely over the top, and I'm glad we got what we did just with this low budget, and the dinosaurs look much better, I think, than Jurassic World a lot of times, but I think they could have done a lot more with this premise than what we got, unfortunately. And so, yeah, maybe it'll hit better for me on rewatch, but that's kind of how I feel on that. Next up is Karate Kid Legends, where I'd never seen Cobra Kai. Don't, have no real intention to see Cobra Kai. I feel like this was geared a lot more towards the continuation of the Cobra Kai lore than anything from the original Karate Kid or the 2010 Karate Kid remake. And ultimately, I don't think it really satisfied either one of those camps. So it was fine, but I don't really feel the need to revisit that one again. Next up is NCIS Tony and Ziva. As someone who has been watching NCIS since pretty much the very beginning, over 20 years now, this is something that we've been looking for since Michael Weatherly and Cody Pablo left the show. And when we finally got it, it was like, all right, it's fun. It's okay, but it didn't give me the wow factor. I think we as fans maybe hyped up probably too much in the time span since this was announced and when we finally got it. Next up is Stranger Things 5. Now, full disclosure, as I'm recording this, we've only had parts 1 and 2 of these, so the first 7 episodes. I've yet to see the finale, but from what I've seen so far, I'm not really sure anything in the finale is going to have me bump Stranger Things 5 any higher than roughly the middle of the pack of the just okay category for me. I reserve the right to revise this once I see the finale and do my full review of that. So look forward to that later. But for now, this is where I'm putting it. Next up is Alien Earth, another one where I was interested. It kept me engaged through most of it, but I think this has suffered from too many storylines going on at once. We're not focusing on only one of which was particularly interesting to me, and then they kept distracting us with all these other side missions that I don't really care about as an audience member. Really focused on the one character and her brother and all of that. And once we get finally back to it, it's like, well, we don't have time to dive as much into it. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens after that, but I think this one was a little bit more of a mulligan than the creators probably would have liked. Next up would be The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. I like the Looney Tunes. This was a fun enough movie. I'll say once again what I said in my review. I'm not sure that Porky and Daffy can carry a feature-length movie doing their shtick the way they do. They're great in shorts, but the feature-length, we needed either the full cast or different mix. Maybe Bugs and Daffy would have worked a little better. That's my point, takeaway from that. Next up will be Fantastic Four First Steps. Probably one of the better Fantastic Four movies out there. I still have the soft spot for the original movies, but as far as first Fantastic Four outing in the MCU, this was serviceable. I'm curious. I'm glad I'll be happy to see them in future installments if they're done better. Next up would be Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. There was a lot more up and down as far as quality of episodes go, but I think the highs were higher than the lows were, which is always the case. But you know what I mean, right? The lows did not overwhelm the high highs, I think, in this season. And I'm sad to hear that we're going to get 2 abbreviated seasons before it gets canceled. But if those abbreviated ones are all we get, I think this middle chapter is decent enough. Next is Elio. This is a Pixar movie that I didn't really have any intention of seeing in theaters, and I didn't really feel a need to go back and watch it. But so many reviewers, said over the past few months that no, this is criminally underrated. That this, people ask for original Pixar movies and then they don't show up to support them. It's like, well, all right, it's on Disney Plus. I may as well go check it out. And when I finally did, it's like, it's fine, it's cute. I mean, I could see how younger kids who are interested in sci-fi would gravitate towards this. I think this would be a good movie to show them. But me as an adult, I don't really see this as transcendent as something like maybe a WALL-E would, keeping with the Pixar sci-fi genre. Next up would be Predator Badlands. Probably one of the better Predator sequels that we've gotten. I was entertained enough. It had some cool concepts. I'm curious to see what Dan Trachtenberg does going forward with this. And this might be the only time I mention his name on this list. Next up is Zootopia 2. Again, good Disney movie. Fun and entertaining. A lot. I need to go rewatch it again to catch all of the Easter eggs that I missed the first time through, I'm sure. But overall, it was fun. It was a decent watch. Probably not as good as the first one, but still very entertaining. Next up is The Naked Gun. And now this, I mentioned before, with comedies and trailers, I was very happy to see that this one, the trailers only really spoiled the jokes in the first 10 minutes or so, and there's plenty more funny stuff to go in, the rest of the runtime. Probably my favorite joke was not in the trailer, and I really appreciated that. Not one I'm gonna rewatch a ton, but I'm glad I saw it. I had a good time in the theater. Next up would be Avatar Fire and Ash. Great theater experience, great spectacle, not quite as good as Way of Water was, and the runtime probably a little too long. Bathroom break accordingly, but I don't regret seeing this in theaters. definitely worth the 3 ticket price on that. Next would be Andor Season 2. Now, I'm putting this up just as high on my list, and I'm not putting it in the best just because I appreciate the set design and the good moments that do show up in this, but I feel like I just couldn't get into the way this series was structured, and I probably would have liked this series a little bit better if it was structured more as just the generic Tales of the Rebellion thing. Because I think Cassian Andor himself is probably the weakest part of this series, and the fact they have to keep focusing back on him because he's the title character is kind of annoying. But that's call that my hot take if you like. I can appreciate it's one of the better shows that we got this year, but I can't put it any higher than the higher end of it. Just okay for me. Above Andor Season 2, I'm putting Superman on this. A lot of fun. Good start to the new DCU. But I'm curious to see what else we'll get coming up with the DCU, this new universe that we're forging under James Gunn. And then topping out the just okay category is Ballerina from the world of John Wick. I think the previous 4 John Wicks are better than this, but this was still a really fun time. And even if I think that they overplayed some of the elements just a little bit, maybe just a little bit too much flamethrower action, it probably overplayed that just a hair. I think this is probably one of my favorites of the year, but I acknowledge it's not as good as, say, John Wick Chapter 4. So that's why I'm putting it at the top of the just okay tier, just this side of the line of the best of the year. And going over that, just on the other side of the line, the bottom of the best parts of the year, we're going to start off with Predator Killer of Killers. The reason I'm not ranked this even higher than this is because while I think because it's basically 4 segments. We can call it 4 acts, but they're really 3 vignettes and a finale that ties them all together. The first one, okay, it's decent enough. Second one, amazing. This is just pure art in its fantastic point. The third bit, I think the character work let it down a bit. That's definitely the weakest element. And then that ultimately colored the finale segment just a bit. But overall, this was one of the most engaging animated movies that I'd seen in a while, and one of the best movies that I've seen this year. Above that, I'm putting Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Again, great stunts. Tom Cruise, if this is your swan song, buy it out. You've given us a great body of work with the Mission Impossible franchise, and you managed to not, break your neck in a stunt, thankfully. But this was definitely one of the best of the year. Not quite as good as the Dead Reckoning, but as far as stunts go, but this was still a heck of a good time. Above that, I'm putting F1, or F1 the movie. Joseph Kosinski basically doing his, Top Gun Maverick, but with Formula One cars. Great. What more do you want? Story-wise, it's standard, but who cares when it's, it's being sold on the visual of, Top Gun, but Formula One. Next up is Thunderbolts. Fun movie. Great. It really impacted me as far as what the characters were going through, and worth the rewatch if you haven't already done so. Which now brings me to the best thing of 2025 that I saw, at least, and that would be Netflix's Death by Lightning. This goes through the story of James Garfield, the president who was assassinated only a few months into his first term, and really didn't have a chance to enact any of the reforms that he was elected to. And, this is one where I didn't know that much about this story, and I'm a really big history buff. So even if you're not a really big history buff, this is someone that is not covered in history class. And this is presented in a way it's based off of a book, but it's shown in a way that is accessible to everyone. It is well worth your time. I highly recommend checking out Death by Lightning on Netflix. So those are my rankings, as it were, of the sliding scale from worst to best and just okay from 2025. If you would rank some of these different, I'm sure there are some that I placed higher or lower than you would. Let me know in the comments down below. But before we go, I want to give us a preview of what you can expect from this channel in 2026. Now, these are theatrical releases, and as we've seen all throughout theatrical exhibition industry since the pandemic, release dates are subject to change. Some things might get added onto this list, some might get taken off. So, as always, these are subject to change. But as of now, what I'm going to be reviewing in 2026 starts with Greenland 2 Migration, coming out January 9th. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, coming out February 13th, alongside Cold Storage, which also comes out February 13th. Project Hail Mary comes out March 20th. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, comes out March 27th. The Super Mario Galaxy movie comes out April 3rd. Lee Cronin's The Mummy comes out April 17th. Mortal Kombat 2 comes out May 8th. The Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, May 22nd. Masters of the Universe, June 5th. Toy Story 5, June 19th. Supergirl, June 26th. Young Washington, July 3rd. The Odyssey, July 17th. Spider-Man, Brand New Day, July 31st. Coyote vs. Acme, the long-awaited Coyote vs. Acme, August 28th. Clayface, September 11th. Street Fighter, October 16th. Narnia, from Greta Gerwig, November 26th. Jumanji 3, December 11th. Avengers Doomsday, December 18th. And Dune Part 3, also December 18th. Like I said, certain dates are always subject to change. Like, I highly doubt that we're going to get both Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3 on December 18th. One or the other is probably going to get moved off of that. But look out for all of those. Again, I may add some onto that list, depending on what the trailers look like coming out in the coming months. But as we tick off the final days and hours of 2025, I hope you had a good year. And if you didn't have a good year, I hope 2026 treats you better. And be sure to look for my next video, which will be a little different from my previous years' beginning of year videos. I'm going to be doing just a fun look back on some movies that are hitting some anniversaries, 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, etc. And you can take this time to say, dang, I'm old, or man, how time flies. So something like that. Hopefully we'll have fun going through those. Hope to see you for that. And again, thank you so much for watching this video or any other video on my channel. If you like this, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Happy New Year, everyone. And remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.